Done! If this show's turning into the Marvels, I'm bailing. We opened this week on the only ship in this whole damn show that should matter, Masho and Sora, as they were just watching some TV. They had it to themselves for a while, as Tsubasa was busy researching the books he had gotten from the King of Skyland, and L was just watching him. Menacingly! However, Ageha just had to bring her downstairs to set off the events of this episode, as they ended up watching a special about weddings, specifically that of your typical Christian wedding. And while they were a little different from some more traditional ceremonies across Asia, nothing could compare to Skyland's traditions. And I'm guessing eloping rates must be really damn high in your world. Also, do marriage licenses exist in Skyland? And if you get a divorce, do you have to hire a particular bird lawyer?
I may be a simple country hyper chicken, but I know when we're finger-licked.
Well, none of that mattered to Elle, who declared that she wanted to get married to Tsubasa, and just looking at the bird boy's face here, I could tell, for whatever reason, Ken Ueno was animating this one. And we did want to save one of the best animators of this franchise for a more plot-relevant episode because...
I don't know.
But yeah, while they could very easily resolve this issue by just saying no to the easily influenced toddler like most parental figures would, they decided to just go through with at least a pretend wedding after Ageha talked about how she did as a kid. Thus, they got right into the preparations, though at one point, Tsubasa showed off his research to Ageha and wait, is that the crystal heart from MLP?
Yes, great stuff.
God, what I would give if King Sombra were the main villain of this show. Yeah, I know they kind of ruined his character in the 9th season, but still, it would be better than nothing. But yeah, this was significant because L didn't want the quote-unquote groom to dedicate so much time to his research that could not only significantly help her kingdom's development, but also help them in their war against the Ondarku Empire. I mean, granted, the latter issue doesn't really need that much help, but still, this was one of my biggest issues with this episode. Anyway, they thankfully played the wedding as mostly just a quick and painless little montage. They went to the altar, took a picture with their overpriced iPad knockoff, and ate some cake. Done and done.
How about new?
However, this wasn't the end, as apparently the princess was treating this like a real wedding, where she'd be able to spend her entire life with the groom through sickness, health, and all that jazz. And again, they really could have and should have played this off as just some playful banter with the toddler rather than overreacting to it like this. Hell, even Masho had the right idea that they should just give it time and the princess and her attention deficiencies would kick in and they could move on. Still, this didn't stop Tsubasa from having a kind of funny nightmare about the reactions from his parents and the in-laws. Sato Misato and Konami Yoshida had probably some of the best overacting in this scene, but truth be told, I think we all know what Tsubasa's real nightmares would look like.
Why don't you have a seat?
The next day, Elle tried to play with her bird hubby, and when he didn't respond, she turned into a bridezilla.
I've got it! Arson!
She took one of Tsubasa's books, forcing everyone to look for it, until they found the culprit, who didn't figure to try and hide it in like her toy box or something. Am I the only one getting a headache from this episode? I mean, okay, maybe it is more of a me thing, as I've also had to chase my niece when she got something she shouldn't have, but really, this episode in general has just been a drag with how everyone has played along with this little brat and her antics. And yet, by this point, when she's clearly recognized that she did something wrong and even tried to hide it, she snapped at Tsubasa and said that she hated him after he had complied with almost all of her demands other than not waking up when she wanted him to. And according to Ageha, this is all because Elle was lonely without Tsubasa and she missed the days when they could spend more time together, ignoring how in between that time she became a Precure, and supposedly, at least, the battle with the Empire was escalating.
You realize how messed up that sounds, right?
Like, people have told me that I was wrong for saying that her Precure debut was mid, but really, aside from the Majestic Chronicle, what has she brought to the show? She hasn't really developed since the start of the series, which is understandable since she is a toddler, but at the same time, you can't expect me to get into episodes like this where I shouldn't expect any sort of development, especially as we're nearing the end of the series. Also, don't even bring up Cure Majesty as some form of development. She and Elle are practically written as two different characters at this point. But on that note, Tsubasa apologized for prioritizing his important research over playing with the princess, who has at least 3 other caretakers. Oh, thank God, he's finally here. Wait, am I happy to see the skinhead? This resulted in one of the most frustrating fights in the series. Oh, not because it looked bad, far from it. It was 90% Kenueno quality animation, other than a few small areas, but again, why did they need to use such good animation for an episode like this? Also, sure, Skierhead, now you specifically target the princess like your constantly absent boss told you to. But yeah, of course, Elle was rescued by her knight in short shorts, and they didn't even bother to perform a J Phoenix, even though the reference was right there, guys. But yeah, with that, the episode ended with, I guess, Elle getting married to her whole team. Now, just so we're clear, I don't hate this episode because of the pretend wedding. That would just be silly. I hate it because it was a goddamn waste of time. I mean, it would be one thing if they had done this sort of episode near the beginning of the series, but we're well into the final core of this season, and there's still a ton of loose plot threads that need to be tied up. And as a result, an episode like this really just leaves me more annoyed more than anything else. An episode like this actually could have worked out a lot better much earlier into the series, like maybe a little after Tsubasa's Precure debut. They wouldn't necessarily need Cure Majesty, as even now that remains a heavily undercooked plot point, and in fact, it actually might even make more sense as after Tsubasa was outed as an anthrobird and became a Precure, his covert playtime with Elle would have dramatically decreased, and she would understandably get lonely without her little bird friend. Here, not only is it frustrating from a meta sense that we're getting this sort of filler when we have at best 11 episodes left in the show, it just feels pointless when Elle, at this point, shouldn't really feel all that lonely. She's got like 4 or 5 caretakers, and can even supposedly join them in on their heroic adventures. Again, Majesty feels like a totally different character, but in story they're supposed to be the same, but you get my point. It's just not fun seeing Tsubasa have to put up with this kid, and even kind of be painted in the wrong for not playing with her more, when again, he's just doing what he's supposed to do, especially as a future sage to the kingdom. Maybe that's why Ken Ueno was brought in for this episode, to make it admittedly visually very presentable. I mean, just look at this one sequence between Aka and Tsubasa, it looks amazing. But when it's in service for an episode like this, I overall just can't bring myself to care. Some of the comedy was legit good, and Aka's interactions with Tsubasa, while nothing outstanding, were at least amiable. But really, the only pretend, or rather practice wedding I would be interested in would be between these two. Seriously, I would have legit enjoyed this episode a lot more if it was just Sora and Masho watching some TV together, preferably interdimensional cable. I hope y'all are having a nice weekend. I certainly had a nicer one last week when I didn't have to review 2 shows at once. Nah, kid though, I do still enjoy making these videos, even if this stupid website keeps paying us in peanuts. Maybe y'all shouldn't worry so much about ad blockers and instead just get better ads is all I'm saying. Still, until next time though, farewell for now my friends, and hold on. Thank you. What? It was just my DoorDash. Were you expecting someone else?